Live, going live. Morning. Lawrence Brown.
Wael. Wael.
What? Hey. Hello, Lawrence. We're waiting for Wael. So, good evening, everybody. Glo, can you
Yes,
please?
good evening, everybody. Good evening, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and also to our televiewers abroad from the different regions and different countries that reaches the Center for Persons with Disabilities Incorporated. And for now, we have our special guest from Saudi Arabia. We have with us later Wael Alomari from Saudi Arabia, a journey as a person with disability. So stay tuned. We'll wait for him. And while we're waiting, marami na tayong mga kasama dito. Si Nancy, si Nikki, si Net, si Rose. Sino yung lumigis tumatawa? Sino pa raw yung ating mga production
Lawrence.
team na nasa at nakasama natin ngayon?
Dr. Lawrence Brown is here. Teka, kanino yung live? Kay Ken siguro. Si Pwede. Vlog, Dr. Lawrence Brown is here now with us. Hello, Glo.
Good morning,
Lorela is
good
here.
afternoon, good
Yes.
evening. Good evening.
Hello,
Right.
Dr. Lawrence. How are
Hello
you?
again.
Glad
I'm very
glad
well.
yes.
Well,
Glad
I
to
had
see you.
time. I had time
Wow.
today to put the
Wow,
time
you
up.
look gorgeous. You look
Thank you so
gorgeous.
much.
Yes.
Been a
Welcome. We
long,
welcome
been
you.
a long
We
time since
welcome.
anybody said that to me.
Yes. Wow. We welcome you again.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for the support.
So while waiting for a while, uh,
Yeah, actually, I can't hear you because of the music that's going on in the
because of the
background.
music. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Rome. You can hear me because of the music.
Oh,
Okay.
that's better now. That
That's
was.
better now. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
ex
thank you.
I'm
Thank you, Lawrence,
experimenting with
for
some music
yeah, thank you, Lawrence,
some
for the support.
TV style.
Okay.
Thank you for the support. And as I told you, you look gorgeous tonight.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you so much. Um, Wael is going to be just a little bit late. He got caught up with something. So I thought we might kick off with, I would like to know, to lay the context for Wael about what he's going to talk about, which is a personal journey of his from birth
Yeah.
to where he is now, which is as a senior inclusivity manager with one of the world's largest energy companies. I'd be interested to know what your charity, I'd like to know more about what you hope to do, what your priority areas are to make a difference, to your clients, to your audience.
Yes. Thank you.
Rom,
Thank you for your
I can't hear anything Rom's saying.
Sorry. Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
my,
You,
my mic was on on a neutral.
okay.
Okay. And thank you, Dr. Lawrence. By the way, this episode, Wael is here. Wael is here.
yeah.
Great.
Well,
Yes, Wael is here. Dr. Lawrence, what we intend to do, okay, we are Center for Persons with Disabilities
Yeah.
Advocates Incorporated, and we want to inspire persons with disabilities overcome helplessness.
Yeah, I see that in the mission statement.
Yes, and help them become empowered advocates. That's what we want to do, and this is our main project is regular live broadcasting and so that we try to develop media skills from our branch.
Ah, okay.
Yes, yes. Hello, Wael. Wael is here. Hello, Wael.
Good
Wael.
evening.
Living Wael.
How
Yes.
are you?
I'm fine, Wael. It's thank you for accepting our
Of
invitation.
course,
Yes,
of course.
and I was thanking Dr. Lawrence for connecting you with us.
Yes.
Yes.
Lawrence and I worked together for a few years. So, and he's a very good friend of mine. And when he offered the opportunity to speak, I said, why not? Maybe sharing experiences. And I'm sorry I couldn't really make it as an Aramco employee because first I'm on leave, and second, the approval process takes some time to be able to speak on behalf of the company. So at this stage, we can keep it on a personal level, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from each other.
Yes, no problem. No problem, Wael. Um, you're the second Saudi to speak with us. The first one was
Nice.
Wessam Al Hassan. Yes, he has an art gallery, and we invited him so that we our artists, our persons with disability artists, can somehow have a door open for Saudi Arabia art curators and art dealers.
Mhm.
Yes, and when Dr. Lawrence linked you with us, with me, I realized that we can have a window also. We can have a window into persons with disabilities in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
can start with you, with your experience, with your sharing. You seem to have been integrated into mainstream business.
yeah.
Yes, of this,
Basically,
and we want that to happen also to our country. And maybe your experience can help
yeah.
us realize we can do it also.
Yeah. So first, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak to you. Thanks to Lawrence for offering that. Uh, uh, you know, just how to start. I think the challenge of disability is a global challenge. I've been to many countries, and I interacted with a number of people with disabilities around the world. And I find the challenges almost the same because it is a human experience. I used to think that it has something to do with the culture, for example, or with the local context. But then I realized from working with Aramco, leading the disability inclusion program, or being a person with disability myself, it is a global challenge. It is the challenges you have in the Philippines are similar to the challenges we have in the Middle East, are similar to the challenges the Americans have, for example. So it is important to have this understanding. So we do not put so much pressure on, for example, on ourselves or our culture, or blaming that the culture is not accepting. There are many cultures that still find it difficult to empower people with disabilities. Personally, I think having a great family, a supportive family, is key, because when I was born in 1983, I had a rare disability called orthogryposis multiplex congenita, which is basically I'm able to walk, and I'm very, very independent, 100% independent, but I have difficulties walking. I have limitations in my muscles and my joints. So you can see that my hands are a little bit contracted, but I still can use them. I drive my own car. I don't need any accommodations. I travel. I've been to many places. I did my master's in China, for example. Very independent. I don't need any personal help. So I think the key thing for or the key factor for a person with disability to be eventually included in the mainstream is to have a supporting family. Family should understand that disability is not, it can limit the person's ability to contribute fully, I would say, but there is a room for contribution, and parents should understand that. One of the challenges many people have, many cultures have, is when parents are neglecting that child with disability. It is sometimes, I've seen cases where children were abused just because of their disabilities. So creating that safe family environment is key for a child with disability to be, I would say, more independent, depending on their disability, and at the same time to gain that self-confidence, because there are people with disabilities that are not, disabilities vary. So the physical disabilities are totally different from the sensory disabilities, but the factor of self-confidence is key, so they can contribute when they grow up and they go for education and all that. Some of the challenges that families could face, and I am improvising. I didn't really, prepare so much for that, but feel free to stop me and ask questions. The other factor is when families do not find enough resources for interacting with that child. In my case, for example, back in the 80s here in my hometown, many doctors didn't know what type of disabilities, what disability I had. They didn't know the cause. I did some investigation and I did some research, and for example, orthogryposis is a wide range of conditions. So it can be very minor, or very mild, and very to the severe cases. But at that time, the doctors didn't know. They knew that this is something we never seen before. It's a very rare condition, 1 in 3,000 births. So that was one of the challenges my parents had. But they believed that education is the key for overcoming disability. Even for some mental disabilities like Down syndrome, when they receive the right education, they can be independent, they can get married, and they can live a fulfilling life. So the lack of resources, the medical resources, the education resources, the social support system, when we lack that, parents might find it very challenging to have or to raise a child with disability. Some of the other challenges we had is deciding, this is from a medical point of view, deciding what type of medical intervention I needed. I've gone through a series of operations at that time. One of the conditions people who have orthogryposis have when they're born is the hip dislocation. So I didn't have this operation until I was, I think, 4 or 5. And I still remember some of the times I had in the hospital. But this came after, when my dad was able to identify one of the visiting professors who was specialized in children's hip dislocation. And it was a series. I had 6 operations at that time in a matter of 2 years, I believe. And it was, they were very successful. So that shows when you have the right resource, the right support, you can help improve the condition. There are other disabilities, however, where you cannot have any intervention, but you have to, and I mean medical intervention like surgeries and stuff. like that. But you still have maybe some support from the psychiatrists, for example, like autism. So finding the right resources is key for overcoming the or reducing the effect, the difficulty of having a child with disability. The child, him or herself, they also need some support because, you know, like being born with a disability is something a child wouldn't understand, and that could make it very difficult for self-acceptance. One of the challenges I had in middle school, because I did my primary school in specialized schools, they are designated for children with disabilities. It was a very safe environment. All the children around me were boys and girls with different disabilities. So it wasn't something that we talked about because we all have disabilities. We didn't have any differences. But graduating from primary school, and my dad at that time decided that I should go to a public school, which was a wise decision, I believe. It was very challenging because for me, it is the first time that I face, I would say, real people. People who never experienced a classmate with disabilities, and they were confused and I was confused. So the clash happened eventually. It was difficult for me. It was too much bullying, but amazingly, I was able to fight back. I wasn't really the passive student. I was the only, imagine it's like a school of maybe 200 students, and I was the only student with disability. So that made me very famous. And I was playing on that. Whenever there is a problem, I would just go directly to the principal, and nobody would stop me. So I was smart enough to be able to create some. I was the troublemaker per se. Whenever someone is bullying me, I would just go and create an issue about it, and they will sometimes be punished almost immediately. So that was a relief. But this is one of the challenges. I had supporting parents, so they were they were understanding, very supportive. Again, at this stage, it is extremely important for parents to understand the difficulties that their child is having, especially if there are in some, let's say, inclusion programs for students with disabilities. I know there is something similar in the Philippines where parents are encouraged to bring their children with disabilities to public schools. I think what made it an easier, per se, experience is I didn't need any special accommodations or reasonable accommodations because I was able to walk. I was very independent. I didn't need any accommodations in the restrooms, for example. I'm still able to climb the stairs, but as not as, I would say, fit as like 15 years ago. And this is an age factor. It doesn't have to do with the disability. I'm almost 37 years old, by the way. But having that understanding and support from the parents is something very important because they need to have these conversations with their child, being very caring, asking questions about how was your day, what are the difficulties, for example, you've gone through, tell me about your day, or ask these open questions, and be your child's friend so they can tell you everything. And when there are major issues, you should intervene as a parent. You should intervene and go talk to the school. Like my dad used to do that, because I was like telling him whenever there is a problem, I would go and say, Dad, I'm having an issue with this and that, and I need you to intervene. So at this early stage, it is always the parents' responsibility to have this open dialogue with their children, with their child with disability, and also with the school. So when there is any thing that they notice, they need to be able to reach out to the parent or the parents and discuss that matter. It is challenging. We should acknowledge that it is difficult on the parents and on the child themselves. And it requires patience and understanding. And at this stage in my life, I believe that it is also important when we need to involve maybe a therapist because they can help address these issues, because bullying is difficult on people, and not all people like me are strong enough to be able to overcome that. I've gone through therapy for some time in my life, but I can talk about that later. But it wasn't related to my disability. So it is, I believe, important to keep this in mind, that parents should be provided with all the support needed to be able to, understand their child with disability, understand the disability, and also overcoming the difficulties that this child is having when they're going to school, for example, especially if it is a public school. Even in specialized school, you still have these issues with bullying and all that, but it could be less severe than in public schools. I believe right now maybe things are changed because we have this access to so much information in the internet, and I believe children can be more accepting for other children with disabilities. So it is important to start from childhood. Whatever you work on childhood, it will pay later when that child is growing up. So moving to high school, it was less severe because everybody was really focusing on the school. And I think you like going through high school in the 90s, I believe it is, I would say it's a wise generation, You don't have all these like children in high school. They're almost like grown-up men, I'm sure it's the same thing in the Philippines. When you're in high school in the 90s, you're able to take responsibility, and you're a grown-up student. You take your school seriously, not like now. I mean, they never take things seriously, but that's another story. Yeah, it was more focusing on my school. I had a good relationship with my teachers and my classmates. So it was, I would say, a smooth journey, because I had some privileges, I would say, where I was able to leave the school 15 minutes before everybody else's, because it was like 500 student building, It was full of students, it was chaos, and it could be dangerous for me to go through the crowds to, go out of the school. I was very tiny. I am 150 centimeters tall, so I'm not the biggest man in the world. But in Arabic literature, we say, beware of a short man. So, yeah, it was high school was a good time. I used to sign up for like what they call it, extra curriculum, where it's like out of class activities. I used to play volleyball, and the coach will literally wouldn't allow me to play because he was afraid that I will fall down and get like a fraction or something, like an injury. But I used to ignore him and just play with everybody, and just being myself, proving myself at that time. So it was good time. Moving to university was a challenging decision for everybody in the family, because my parents were worried that they never experienced, or they didn't have the chance to see me, I would say, performing outside family circle. So, and I think this is something that sometimes parents need to look at, where they don't have to be very protective, especially if the child who has a disability is self-dependent. They don't need so much attention or self-care. So give that chance, give that I would say autonomy, where they can learn from their mistakes. They can, yes, maybe they do something, they get injured, a minor injury. It's fine. It's the same with raising a 6-month-old child. I don't have to wash everything for them unless it is extremely dirty. So their immune system is developing and overcoming like this and viruses and all that. It's the same thing when raising a child with disability, or anyone, any child. So giving that space where there is an area for or room for safe maneuvers, where you can make mistakes, you can hurt yourself, minor injury, I'm saying, just falling down on the floor and all that, unless they need full care. And this is another story. I'm talking about my personal experience. Because I do not use the palm of my hand, I will depend on the upper side of my hand to protect myself. So I had like tons of injuries when I was a kid. You cannot see anything now, but I had scratches all the time here, and I didn't care. As long as I used to play football with the like neighbors' kids, and I would fall down and I would like make a scene out of everything, just because the feel of the need for being included. And I think that was just, I would say, my instinct to be included. Maybe I wouldn't say I am the example for how people with disabilities act, but I think I was a bit aggressive in my whole life when it comes to my contribution to whatever, like my work, my community, among my friends. Lawrence knows a lot about me anyway. So the decision of going to university is something that my parents were worried about, but at the end of the day, they gave me the opportunity to choose. And I always wanted to experience life by myself. So I decided to move out to my hometown. I was 18 at that time. It was 2001 when I graduated from high school. And I applied to, at that time, King Saud University. It was one of the major universities in Saudi Arabia, in the capital, Riyadh. So I decided I want to do computer science. But I'm grateful that I didn't do computer science because I stuck in mathematics. So that's another story. So I did translation. I studied English language, and I have a degree in translation. I've spent 5 years. The experience was very rewarding because at that time we didn't have social media. We didn't even have internet in the dormitory. The infrastructure wasn't developed yet. So I spent most of my time either studying and doing homework and all that. And at the other hand, I was spending so much time in the library reading. And I'm grateful that I'm an avid reader. I like to read a lot. Since I believe I started reading since I joined the primary school anyway. So that experience in the university actually shaped me. I was able to get a part-time job. I was a messenger. So whenever I would have a free time, I would just go to one department. I cannot remember the department, but I was carrying paperwork and stuff for for other departments in the school and the university. And after that, I was assistant secretary for the blind students with blindness center. So basically, it was an organization that is supporting students with blindness during their time in the school. So they would provide interpreters and writers, and they sometimes get approvals for taking exams, supporting the because they don't have braille printers all the time. But I was helping the manager of that center to to finalize some paperwork, maybe make phone calls and stuff. He was a blind person himself, and right now he's one of my best friends. I've known him since like maybe 17, 18 years now, and we're still in touch. And he's a friend more than, I would say, a colleague at that time. But that experience also shaped me because it gave me some work ethics, and I learned what it means to earn the money you make from work. And it was also a good time because hanging out with, I wish you have the experience to hang out with blind people, because they are the funniest people on the planet. I mean, they have a different perspective on life, and literally every day I would be cracking when I talk to them and have conversations with them. They are super nice, super smart, super funny. And I used to have really deep conversations with them. Very intelligent people. So that experience, in addition to pursuing my degree and spending the time in the library, the university library, actually made me the person, or it was the fundamental after my parents, I would say, role into helping me becoming the person who I am right now. So five years in the university, very rewarding. I spent very good time, a happy time, although I didn't have a car. Transportation in Saudi Arabia is very difficult when you don't have your own car. But I managed. I mean, being independent is also being able to find ways to find your way when you don't have a car, for example. So after finishing university, graduating from the College of Translation, Department of English, it was happy time. I still have photos of that. I'm sorry. I mean, I would love to share, but I didn't. They are in hard copies. Most of my photos are in my mom's archive, so I need to scan them one by one to be able to share. But I hope next time I will have more time to prepare. But the moment where I attended the graduation ceremony was a very happy moment. My uncle, my brother, and my dad arrived. One of my cousins arrived, and one of my good friends also arrived. It was a very happy time. Then the other, I would say, major moment in my life came where whether I just find a work and start there or pursue my higher education. And I started thinking about pursuing my higher education just 1 year before I graduate from King Saud University. And at that time, the government started a major scheme for sponsoring many Saudi students to study abroad. And at that time, I didn't have the opportunity because I had 1 year left to graduate. So I said, well, this is at least a 3-year program where students can apply for the next 3 or 4 years to get the to apply for the scholarship. So I said, well, it's 1 year left and it doesn't make sense for me to leave school and start over again. So after graduation, I started like seriously to pursue my higher education, and at the same time look for a job. And both ways were very difficult, because finding a job for a person with disability, I'm talking about 2007, 2006, sorry. Finding a job for a person with disability whose only degree is English language is almost impossible, because there are many people who speak English and they are non-disabled. So their opportunities to find jobs, or their likelihood to find a job, is higher than mine. But I kept looking for a job, and I got my first job, I think, early 2007. And at the same time, I applied for the scholarship program. And it was a very interesting story, because I had to go all the way to the deputy minister to speak to him, to say, I have to be in that scholarship program. I mean, literally, this is what I said to him. And he said, where do you want to go? And I said, I want to go to China. And he was like surprised, because people come to him, they want to go to the States or Europe or Australia, an English speaking country. But I wanted to go to China because I felt like there is something for me over there. And it was less competition. So it was almost guaranteed that I will get the opportunity. I was pragmatic. I mean, thinking pragmatically when I was in that position. So luckily, during that day, I got my approval for the scholarship. And it was like, I was very happy. I felt like I got the $1 million check. It was a very happy moment. Amazingly, I mean, one of the interesting, I mean, when we are destined to have something, we have it. I had a small bag with all my documents in there, including my passport. And after coming out from the deputy minister's office, going to the scholarship program office, I sat there for a few minutes, and the employee there asked me, do you have your passport? And I said, yes, I have my passport. So I handed it over to him, and a few minutes later, he brought it back with the, I would say, the financial like statement, stating that I am one of the Saudi students included in the scholarship program, and I would be sponsored by Saudi Arabia government. So if I didn't have my passport, nothing would happen during that time. So it was really amazing. And I still remember that like it happened yesterday. So after that, a few months later, I found a job. I was a translator in a small company. It wasn't the best company in the world, but I was just spending my time earning some money and waiting for this scholarship program to take place. So I spent 3 months there, April to July. And in July, I received a phone call from a local hospital in my hometown, asking me to come for an interview. And I said, yeah, if I'm getting a salary raise, why not? So I left that small company. I went to this local hospital, and amazingly, I didn't even spend like 2 months there. My first month was fine. My second month, I received a call from one of my colleagues my classmates, who used to work in the admission office in the scholarship program organization. And he said, we got your admission letter from one of the universities in Shanghai. It's called Fudan University. It's a very prestigious university. And it's funny because I planned to go to Beijing, but I got my admission letter from a school in Shanghai. And I'm grateful for that, because I had the best time in my life in Shanghai. So he said, well, the only problem is you have to go through the, it's more like an administrative committee where they decide how to approve the financial statement and associate it with the admission letter. And this process could take months. So I said, well, I'm taking off to Riyadh right now. I borrowed some money from my mom, and I said, I'm going to Riyadh. I'm not going to wait for 6 months to get my scholarship because I had enough. You know, I was a messenger again in that hospital, and that wasn't even fulfilling because I have to sign, like, it's like, you know, the the SAP systems right now in organizations, they do everything electronically. We used to do that in a massive record book. So every message that, or every letter that comes from other departments, we have to like register it. I was a register, I would say. But I said, I'm not going to wait for 6 months for this committee to decide whether I go to China or not. I'm going to China. I borrowed some money from my mom, and I said, Mom, I will see you when I get my tickets from Riyadh. And I flew to Riyadh. I spent 10 days over there. And the first thing I decided to do is to go to the minister's office himself, the minister of higher education. And I waited, like, I arrived to the minister's office around 8 a.m. in the morning, and I was able to see him at 1 p.m. So I waited for like 5 hours with everything in my hand. I have all the proofs and all the documents that showed that I am eligible for this program. And when I had the chance to meet him, I said, this is all my life before your hand. I need to go to the scholarship. Otherwise, it will be difficult for me to, you know, it will be like a difficult situation for me. So I get the signature, amazingly. And they said, next week, come and just follow up at the scholarship program organization. And literally the next week I went there. It was at that time, the week will start on a Saturday in Saudi Arabia. So Saturday morning, I was at the minister's, it's more like paperwork office, where anything that comes from the minister goes there, all the letters and everything. And they found the letter he sent to the scholarship organization with my name on it. So it says this student should be included in the scholarship program immediately. And literally it was immediate. Within that week, I even got my tickets to China. So like a few days before that, I was so confident that this is going to happen. I made my own flight booking. So when I went to the flight bookings administrator, I said, I have a flight booking with all my information on it, and he associated the issue ticket with that booking, and I went back to my hometown. 10 days later, from coming back to my hometown, I flew to China, and it was like a very happy moment in my life, because when you pursue something and you do the right thing, I would say you eventually get it. And this is a very important message I would like to send here, where give your children the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn from their mistakes, and give them guidance. Maybe my parents didn't have enough understanding of how I would say maybe the scholarship program was working, but they said, go, and whenever you need help, just let us know. So that word was enough for me to be able to continue and pursue that scholarship opportunity. So in September 10th, 2007, I arrived to Shanghai. I still remember that date. And it was funny because at that time, just a few months before I arrived China, I used to go to Skype. And at that time, there was this function where you can add people anonymously and start talking to them, start chatting with them. And I've added a few people, including this guy, Chinese guy. His English wasn't really good, but we were able to communicate. And I said, his name was Mark. So I said, Mark, I'm coming to China next month. And he said, do you want me to pick you up from the airport? And I never met this guy. I never even had a video call with him. But I said, you know, he will not kill me, you know. this is not gonna happen. So I said, here is my itinerary. I'm arriving at this date. I provided him with all information, and I gave him my the spelling of my Arabic name in English, and I said, wait me in the airport, in Pudong Airport in Shanghai. And when I arrived there, he was there waiting for me. And I was really amazed because I felt so safe that there is someone who is helping me in this strange country. I've never been there. I know no one there. I don't speak Mandarin. My English wasn't as good as it is right now because I was just studying. I didn't have the chance to speak. So he was there. He helped me. I had some traveler checks in my pocket. He helped me exchange them into renminbi, and he helped me with the onboarding and everything during the first month in my stay in Shanghai. So I'm very grateful for that, for Mark. I lost contact with him a few years ago. I don't know where he is right now, but I'm sure he's fine and he's doing very well. So that first month made me think about how am I gonna live my time, live my life in China. I'm you know, it's very far. I see my family once a year only, and I have to figure out how to navigate this new experience. So school was nice. They were very understanding. The teachers were very kind. They spoke very good English. At that time, I started learning Mandarin. So I speak Mandarin very fluently right now. But I didn't feel like a person with disability. That's the point. Going almost everywhere, the public transit, taking the bus, going to public places, everything was accessible. The tactile pavement for people with blindness were everywhere. Elevators were everywhere. Escalators were everywhere. Even in school, the classrooms were on the first floor. So I don't have to climb the stairs or anything like that. So I didn't think about myself as a person with disability who needs some accommodations. I never thought about myself as a person with disability, but I think with age, I realized that, no, I need to acknowledge that there are times in life where I need help and I need to seek some accommodations, for example. And this happened to me at work, and I will talk about it later. Just a long story short, China experience was a life-changing experience for me. It added a lot to my personality. It added a lot to my understanding of the world. I made so many friends until now. I mean, despite the coronavirus, I visit China almost every year, sometimes twice a year when I have the time. I have so many friends, Chinese friends. So it's like my second home. And I wasn't really able to do that without my parents' support, again, giving me the opportunity to be able, the confidence to pursue my higher education in a totally strange country for them, a very far country from them. It takes me around 12 hours to arrive to my hometown, including transit. I got master's degree in international finance, although I have no idea how I got that because I had other plans, but you know, it happened. And the thing that is I'm very grateful for is the ability to learn Mandarin, because it's a very interesting language and it gave me a very different perspective about the world. Some of my readings actually are about Chinese culture, and sometimes I deliver, I would say, mini seminars about Chinese culture for people who are interested. And I do that for free. I don't receive any money for it. Coming back from China, started another challenge, which is finding a suitable job, because I'm very qualified and I had some work experience in China. I was working during the 2010 Shanghai World Expo. I'm sure many of you, all of you heard about it. It was a massive event, a 6-month event, and I was working in the Saudi pavilion at that time. So coming back with some experience, in addition to my experience prior to flying to China, it was another challenge. So I spent around 15 months looking for a job until I had the opportunity to get an interview in Saudi Aramco. And it took some time until I was officially employed. So my first day in the company was in October 3rd, 2012. And I've done many roles in the company. I've done public relations, I've done communications, then I've done other communications in human resources organization. And last year I started my new role as the program lead for disability inclusion. So basically what I'm doing now is I am helping the company to be more inclusive for employees with disability, the current employees, and also work on increasing the number of new hires from the disability pool. Again, the only reasonable accommodation I needed was an adjustable table, so I can adjust the height, because the standard tables weren't suitable for me, because I am a very short person. The other thing is the chair. I needed, I would say, a special chair. And my organization was very supportive and very helpful, and they provided that on a timely manner. Right now, some of the work I do in the company is I've created a number of workshops and webinars talking about different aspects of disability. So the series started with an introduction for including people with disability, then talking about reasonable accommodations, also discussing barriers to disability inclusion. And this is a very extensive content where we talk about why disability inclusion is not happening, not just in companies, but also in communities. And we talk about how we overcome these barriers. I created 2 webinars, especially for the chief position holders, who are the supervisors and above, to give them practical tools on how to be more inclusive for employees with disabilities. So it's like preparing them for the time where we open more opportunities for candidates with disabilities to be hired in the company. So this is in a very brief 36 years of my life in around 48 minutes. So feel free to ask questions if you like.
Thank you so much, Wael. Wael, I'd like to thank you for your sharing. Okay?
Of course.
Yes, Wael, I'd like to hear you speak Chinese, and I was thinking of what about you try to contact Mark now, because you've lost touch with Mark. Who knows?
I think we have a mutual friend, and it will be a great idea to reach out to her and say,
no, I'm
how
speaking.
about
You speaking Chinese directly to Mark right now. Talk to him. Tell him you want to reach out and want to get in touch again in Chinese.
I would love to do that, but I think it will be a bit difficult to reach out to that friend, the mutual friend, to say to her that I need Mark's contact, and maybe it will take a day or 2. I mean, I would love to do it.
Or maybe I'll change the scenario. Greet your friends. Greet all your friends in Chinese.
So
Hi, Wael. Hi.
大家你好，很高
大家你
兴
好。
跟你们见面。今天我很高兴有这个机会， 跟你们说我的自己的经历，谢谢。
Cheche. Everywhere.
Yeah.
And um, okay, before I give the floor to our panel, I'd like to hear from a few words from the person who made all this possible, that made all this interaction possible. I'm referring to Dr. Lawrence Brown. Dr. Lawrence Brown was the one who recommended you to be our
Thank you.
speaker. Dr. Lawrence, would you like to share a few words?
Well, I'm just glad Wael was able to make it. Luckily, he's been on holiday this last couple of days, so he's been free. There were things that cropped up while Wael was talking. Some of it I knew about before of his life, but other things I didn't. But there were three things that came up for me that gave Wael, I think, from a very early age, confidence. And I think that was the empathy of his parents and the support of his parents. But also he had linguistic opportunities. He gave himself and he made the most of learning English. And if you remember last week when we were talking a couple of days ago, that was brought up as a barrier for people who didn't manage to attend schools, were not inclusive, living in the sticks, not in the major cities, not having perhaps enough interaction with TV, English TV, or the internet that they could read and speak English as a barrier to moving forward in education in the Philippines and also in a work environment because they didn't have the linguistic skills. So I think he was offered the linguistic skills or he managed to find them somewhere along the way. But you know, my wife is not English. My wife is from Nagasaki. And she has noticed as we've traveled around the world in different places that we've lived, whether it be Asia, Singapore, Bahrain, the UAE, or Saudi, that Saudis are particularly attuned to picking up accents and different languages. We met many Saudis who could speak fluent Japanese, accentless. I mean, I don't know it's accentless, but I'm told by my dear lady wife that they speak Japanese accentless, like a Japanese person does. And I think that's interesting. But also, there was some financial backing, scholarships were available. And Wael was given opportunities for that. And because of his early positive attitude, because of his parents' background, because of his ability to learn to speak English and given opportunities, I think that helped his self-confidence. And that's a positive circle. If he continues to be that determined and his positivity continues, it can only spread outwards into greater things because he's ready to sit in the doorway, in the chair, with a paper in his hand and wait for that minister's signature. But he's actually able to get there and actually able to communicate. My concern is for those, not just in the Philippines, but the people I've been working with in the last year. I've been volunteering with the council here to get children to school during the mad floodings we had, during the beginnings of COVID, when we were evacuating people in wheelchairs, where cars couldn't get through and ambulances were overrun. We were using school buses to get children in wheelchairs up on the ramps and out of dangerous areas. And I was taking them to school every day, there and back, 15 or 16 kids with disabilities from age 3 to age 16. All kinds, any disability that needs to go to a special needs school, we had the ability here because we have the schools. And I was surprised when I started. There are hundreds of children here who are taken to school and back every day by bus, out of the family home to specialist, huge schools built specifically for special needs, catering for virtually every aspect. So we have that financial backing and we have that welfare backing. But I know that in the Philippines, you have disparate communities. You have the very poor areas where the kids are looked after by the community. Then you have the very wealthy areas in central cities where there are public facilities for people with special needs. But what about in the middle? What about the smaller towns where there is neither a good public health system and there is neither a community? What happens to those children? What opportunities are they helped with? I'd like to know.
All right.
Allow me to
Uh,
add something to what
yeah, yeah.
Mr. Lawrence said.
Yes, please.
Lawrence and I remember some of the difficult times I've gone through during working in Aramco. And many people are going through difficult times in their jobs. So yes, we were laughing about it. I was miserable. I was down. But we both knew that this is not going to last forever. I need to do something about it. And I've done something about it. Lawrence is one of the greatest support I had during that time. So he was supporting me. I would say I wouldn't say necessarily saying that you have to do this or to have to do that. He was just opening or providing me with different perceptions or aspects about how I should approach these problems or these difficult times. And eventually, and I'm very grateful for him and having him in my life. And particularly during that difficult time, I am the person who I am right now. And I reached what I reached partially because of him. The reason I'm saying that is because you heard the positive side of my story, but there are so many negative sides and difficulties. I've gone through depression. I've gone through anxiety, and I've gone through years of therapy. And I am grateful that my positive attitude remained, even if at my darkest times, I always knew that this is going to be over very soon. When I didn't know, but I had this attitude, and I think this is something that anyone should have, not just a person with a disability.
Yeah, that comes back to having hope. We talked about that a couple of days ago. If you have hope and you have a support system around you, and I agree with you. I remember meeting you the first week. I think you'd only been there 4 or 5 days when I met you, and you had a problem. So I took you in I was getting your parking permit for your car, and I put you in the car and I drove you to the police, and I said, give him his permit now, don't make him wait. And they did. But that's the kind of attitude you need.
One of the great things about knowing Lawrence, and he will open the door for you when you're in his car. So
Yes. I'd like to introduce our group. Nikki O'Bannon. Nikki O'Bannon has cerebral palsy. I believe Lawrence has not yet met also Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
And yes, and Nelda. Nelda has mild epilepsy. Gloria has polio, and Nancy Kaputli also has polio. Okay, so I'll give the chance now for the group to ask questions to Wael. So let's start with Gloria. Gloria, what would you like to ask Wael?
Yeah, yeah. With your sharing, you are so blessed. And my question is, were you able to encounter indigenous family in Saudi Arabia who need support from the government, like medical assistance, checkups and therapies, and to sustain their daily needs because of being an indigenous family? They don't have they're also jobless. So were you encounter about that kind of family in your area?
We do have some support programs from the government where the families who have children with disabilities, I'm talking about permanent disabilities, they receive some support from the government, financial support. And some of them also receive, if they need some hearing aid or medication, they would get it through the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development. The good thing is healthcare is free in Saudi Arabia, so they do have access to healthcare. It takes some time because these are public hospitals, but at least they do receive support both financially and medically when they need. There are also some programs where they have priority on housing schemes and stuff like that. My auntie, God bless her soul, she passed away a few years ago. She was born with Down syndrome. and she was receiving financial aid. She was receiving medical support from the government. But because, for many reasons, she didn't have access to school. But children with disabilities have access to school, and the schools are obliged to accept them. So there is no discrimination against them. So we do have these programs because, we're an oil company. We're oil government. Economy is very huge. We're supposed to provide these services.
Yeah, what about one more. What about the PWD employment for government and private agencies?
There are also government schemes for hiring people with disabilities, although we still have some of the difficulties regarding the reasonable accommodations. Not all organizations or companies in the private sector are familiar with the reasonable accommodations needed to be able to assist and hire people with disabilities. So the government created some programs to raise awareness about reasonable accommodations, and there is a certification program. It's a paid certification program where private sector companies, and even government organizations can sign up for this certification program, and they will be audited against different chapters. There are 8 chapters. All of them are about the disability inclusion. It's more like an ecosystem where you provide reasonable accommodations as well as you provide disability friendly policies and regulations for hiring people with disabilities.
Thank you, Wael. Wael, I may be taking too much of your time. Are
No,
you
I'm
still
fine.
available?
I've freed myself for these 2 hours just for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Wael. Okay, so what about the next question? And I think Nikki has a question. Nikki, would you like to ask Wael a question?
Good evening, Sir Wael.
Good evening. Kamusta?
Thank you for sharing with us your story.
Mm-hmm.
Since Saudi Arabia is your country of origin, could you paint again, in general, the picture of how disability inclusive Saudi Arabia is?
Mm. Well, to be honest, it's still a bit challenging because the public space is not, I would say, accessible. So the issue right now we have is not with how people, it's not the acceptance of people with disabilities in the community or in the society. It's more about the accessibility of services and public spaces. So right now there are some schemes in some municipalities in different cities around Saudi Arabia where they talk about the humanization of these cities. So it's planting trees, creating more green space for people, like parks and public parks. Also the accessibility of these services. So we still have some challenges. We still have some issues with people parking on an accessible parking lot. So the traffic police issued fines for that. If they find someone without the proper stickers on their cars, they will be fined because of their parking and accessible parking. So things are developing, and I see the development is very rapid recently. Right now, there is a movement toward sign language and having more people able to at least speak the basics of sign language. So we see this progress toward a more inclusive environment for people with disabilities. It is a slow progress, but it is happening. I would say it's way better than 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Follow-up
Thank
question,
you so much
Nikki?
for your response. Uh, I have another question.
Yes.
Uh, what what advice would you give for parents of children with disabilities who are having second thoughts in putting their children into mainstream with regards to their education because of the fear that of the negativity they may experience or encounter?
Well, uh, you're making it difficult for me because I don't have children. I don't know. But what I can say is, I think have the conversation with the children, prepare them. It shouldn't be something that it shouldn't be shocking that out of the blue they find themselves in a public school with all the complexities and issues that come with that. So they should have the conversation, and the child. I wouldn't say they should have the say, because maybe they don't realize all the things behind the scene, but they should be contributing to taking the decision whether they continue on a special school or go to public school. So explain the pros and cons, have a conversation, and build up the confidence, whether so they're sure that you're taking the decision, whatever decision is that, based on their interest. So because parents would know whether they can these children can continue on a public school or a special school. But having that conversation, having that discussion, and it should start early. Let's say if that child is on the 6th grade and they want to move to the 7th grade or maybe to the high school, middle school, sorry. Let's have the conversation earlier during the 6th grade, so they're mentally prepared for the transition. This way, it will be easier for them to adapt. That's my humble advice, and I might not be the best person, but this is how I see it.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Nikki, for your questions. What about Nelda? Nelda, would you like to ask a question?
It's almost the same with you speaking. Hi, Mr. Wael.
Hi, kamusta?
Kamusta po? Kamusta po? And good afternoon to also to Dr. Lawrence. Uh, um, Mr. Wael, I was amazed about your positive attitude in life.
Thank you.
What is your best advice for those parents who can't accept about the illness of their child? Because not all parents accept the about the disability of their child. Not all.
Well, I know that this is one of the major issues some families have, where families are still in denial. They live in that for a very,
Yes,
very long time, waiting for time to change that. Uh, I mean, I believe maybe there should be some professional assistance. Have an honest conversation with the parents. Maybe bring someone. I wouldn't say therapy, but bring someone who can navigate this denial and acceptance. That takes time. Personally, it
yes,
took me time to accept myself the way I am. Sometimes I would look at myself in the mirror and I find it a bit difficult to accept my body the way it is. But right now, I'm over it. It's the same thing with parents or anyone who is in denial when it comes to disability. It is a difficult experience. It is challenging, and accepting that sometimes some people live their whole lives where parents are in denial. But I think
Yes.
it is very, very, I would say, great of you addressing this issue at this stage. Sometimes just professional support is all what you need for your parents to uh, to reach this acceptance stage. It might take some time, and also the way you introduce it is very important. So, out of their respect, we wouldn't say, okay, my parents, we love you, and I think you need help. It shouldn't be this way. What we can say is maybe we need to discuss this matter with someone, and you can introduce maybe that professional as one of your friends, and they know how to start the conversation, and they know how to address the issue, and they know how to navigate this denial with respecting your parents, or any parents. I'm not sorry, I'm assuming that it's your parents, but I withdraw that. But knowing that parents should they have their pride, and addressing that issue shouldn't really even scratch their pride. It should be in the nicest way possible, in the most respectful way possible. It can be challenging, I tell you, but maybe you can. What a person can do is start doing some research on how to address denial, disability denial, in the family, for example, or among friends or anywhere, and start from there. There are so much material in the internet, and so much professional, I would say, so much content from many professionals that could also help address this matter.
Thank you so much. Salamat
Sure.
po.
Yep. Walang anaman.
Wow.
Okay, Nelda.
Can I,
Okay,
Sir Rob, can I ask Mr. Lawrence just one question?
sure, sure. Okay,
Dr.
go ahead.
Lawrence.
Okay, go ahead.
Dr. Lawrence, hi.
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 Sir, you mentioned, I think a couple days ago, you mentioned about Mook. Am I right? Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, sir.
Yeah.
Mook, MOOC.
Yeah.
That if we go here, we can choose any subject. Is this for free? Is this
Yes.
yes?
Yeah. It's pretty much for free. It was always for free. And then
Yeah.
companies got involved, as I was talking about Aramco. My job with Aramco for the last few years was making sure people understood the possibilities of these online courses that come from all universities all over the world that you can do for free.
Yes.
Or if you just want the information, you can sign up to the courses that are advertised and just what's called
Okay.
audit, AUDIT, just audit the information, and you can learn that. You don't have to do all the assignments. So you don't want the paper at the end of it. You just want the information that's within that, the meaty bit of that course. And you can get that information in 3 or 4 hours. You can do it on the internet. You can find that information. But these are established courses with very good institutions. So it was MOOC, massive, open, online courses. Massive, because I talked about the first one that came out as a full degree, which was Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where you could do a computing course. Eventually, you could do a whole computing degree program with MIT, but you didn't get the credits. So you got certificates to say you passed the modules, and you could take those from your village outside Lagos. You could take them into Lagos and go to a company and say, look, I'm capable of doing all of this. I don't have an MIT degree certificate, but I have all these certificates
Yes.
from MIT. So the reason they were massive is because 26,000 people signed up to the first course. Now the class was 26,000 people.
In any age, sir.
There's no limit. There's no age limit, whether you were
There's no
16,
limit.
16 and you could cope with it, or you were 86 and you could cope with it. However, we come back to that question about English ability. So in Jordan, Queen, the royal family have
When
opened,
Alia, maybe.
yeah, that's right. They have opened up their own MOOCs in Arabic. And there are countries around the world opening up their own MOOCs, these online courses, but you don't have to be fluent in English. They're acceptable in your country if you do them in your own language. So I think there's room in the Philippines to set up a MOOC academy where you're translating these courses and offering these short online courses in Tagalog or in English, I think. But they're MOOCs. And you simply go and you put a search in for whatever, I don't know, SAP, how to use SAP, which is what Wael was talking about earlier. It's a holistic software that are used in institutions. And you could put MOOC and you'll find 50 programs offering you different levels of interaction with the subject. You can take them from a scalable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or you can just pick and choose the ones you want until you think you know enough. Then you could move to another subject. My goal with the rest of my life is to get these short online courses value added into school curriculum so that young people at school know what subjects they want to study, but they have a free choice. What we gave the staff at Aramco.
Thank you so much,
Yes, thank you.
Dr.
Yes,
Lawrence. And thanks to
which
Mr. Well.
yes, which leads me to ask Wael, how much of online courses have you taken, or did they play an important role in your education?
Well, some of the materials I've done are related to my own interest, which is about China and China studies. Uh, 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 I would say I didn't really do much outside Aramco because most of the online training I've done within the organization is more related to leadership skills and problem solving skills and the 7 habits, time management, meeting management. And right now I reached the stage where I create my own webinars. But I am a person who likes to learn while it's on the job training. This is my favorite way of learning. I like to learn the things by, I wouldn't say trial and error, but I like to experience the new role and go through some of the difficulties and maybe make some mistakes. Then after that, I get the theoretical aspect of how things should be done. This makes it very easy for me to comprehend and understand and be able to excel. Uh, in a personal level, I think reading helps me is one of the ways I learn. I like interactive. I would say traditional ways of learning, where I go to school or I go to a class and interact. For me, this is something amazing because it is so much positive energy that is within the classroom or the workshop environment. But at the same time, it is having this human interaction. It can be a little bit challenging or difficult when it comes to virtual meetings because but this time we have to do that. It is the distance and the epidemic and all these things. I believe in the quality. Sometimes you do 2 or 3 courses that are making major difference, whether in your career or your life and your interest and your passion. I know many people who've done hundreds of online courses, but their attitude is the same. Their negativity is the same. Their way they approach things never changed, despite the fact that they have tens or hundreds of online courses, certificates in their drawers. I always believe in quality. You know, I've been honestly looking for a degree in Chinese studies online, but I still find it a bit difficult to find. Maybe because it's not offered yet. But this is one of my passions, I would say, to get an online degree on in Chinese studies because I'm very interested in that. I know that I can do that anytime, and not necessarily during this, because it's something just for to fulfill my own passion and my own interest. But I have more things in my hand right now. I have my job, and I'm working on starting my own business. It's, I would say, a third or a fourth priority in the meantime. But it is amazing to have online degrees and courses, so it makes it very easy for everyone, especially for people with disabilities, since these platforms also look at the accessibility of courses. So you have Coursera, for example. They do provide great accessibility solutions on the MOOCs that Lawrence was talking about. So yeah, for me, it's about the quality, not the numbers.
You? Yes, Lawrence.
I was just going to say, whilst talking about a whole degree program, which is sometimes up to 30 different modules.
Yes.
A master's degree in Asia is usually around 14 modules, but it's the level, it's not the amount of work, it's the level. But the wonderful thing about these MOOCs, these open online courses, is that you can pick a quite specific topic.
Yes.
So you can have a fascination in Egyptology, and you go online and you'll find 20 courses that offer you different aspects. Or Chinese studies, you can go online and be quite specific in your search about what aspect. I mean, Chinese studies is massive, you know, it's huge. You know, it's like saying Asian studies. But if you're very specific about what you're looking for in the search, and you spend 10 or 15 minutes searching, you will find 10 courses that all look very interesting.
I've done in 2018, I've done a 3-month course in 3 different modules on doing business in China. So it was so much hard work, but it was worth it, because the amount of knowledge I have about how to do business in China, not necessarily trading, but even starting a multinational company in China, and how to do the lobbying, and how to do the sourcing, and everything related to doing business in China. I've done it in 3 months from the Chinese University of Hong Kong, which is one of the most prestigious universities in Asia.
Yeah.
I've done that for only I think $60. I mean, it is nothing comparing to the knowledge you get. It is so much work. I have to spend so much time taking notes and doing it was serious studying. I mean, people sometimes underestimate online courses, but it is actually actual learning. You have to move some rusted gears in the back of your to be able
true,
to.
Yeah, it's very true.
It was worth it.
Yeah. One of the things that I find very useful that you might think about, Gloria and Nelda, is find a course that you know is needed in your peer group or your family or your community.
Yes.
Find a course that's needed and go through it yourself and peer teach it to a group of community of learners. So you can go into an institution, like a special needs institution, and you can say, who's interested in this? 10, 12 people come forward, and you can put it across yourself. You're learning it on the side. You've got papers you can give to them. This is for dissemination. It's not, the whole point of MOOCs is to democratize the famous educational institutions for the people who live in those villages outside Lagos, who don't have the money to go to university, wouldn't have that opportunity in the family. They can do it if they have the determination. And as Wael pointed out earlier, it comes in a circle, a positive circle. It begins to build up to that triangle of self-esteem at the top, where they're building up the confidence that our friend Wael exudes so beautifully.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Okay, Nancy, how about you? Would you like to ask a question, Nancy?
Hello, good evening. I would
Good
like
evening.
to question to Sir Wael. The persons with disability in your place have pension like other countries?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Again, The persons of disability in your place in Saudi Arabia have pension like other countries,
You mean pension?
especially the indigent?
Yes, while pension,
So
do they receive
well,
pension?
basically, as I mentioned, we do have some financial support for the unemployed people with disabilities, but those who have jobs like me, they go through the pension process like anyone else. So after working for a number of years, reaching the age of 50, for example, I can apply for the pension program through the social insurance organization. So for working people with disabilities, it is the same for the same process for them as the non-disabled. But for those who are unemployed, they do apply for the financial support scheme, and if they're qualified, they will receive it. So, for example, if a person with disability has a job, but his salary is less than 4,000 riyals, so this is around less than $1,000 a month, they still receive the government support. But more than that, if someone receives more than $1,000 a month, they're disqualified because the amount they make is more than they make more money, so they don't need the financial support. But the pension program is the same whether a person has a disability or not.
Thank you. You are
Okay.
very successful, sir. One question. You are very
Yes.
successful, but you won't share your love life. How is your love life?
Well, recently I'm single, but I'm not available, so too bad for you ladies. No, I mean,
Wonderful question. I've often asked Wael that myself. I said, Wael, are you available? You have a beautiful smile.
that's funny, Lawrence.
Okay. Okay,
Can I just say
But
something here? Because while you've been talking, I've been looking at a
yeah.
new document I've had to read. This is a 60-page document, and this is about quality assurance in schools. And I'm just about to go to a country, Pakistan, and I'm just about to spend a year working in the school system, making sure that school improvements are moving forward. And do you know the one word that is not in this document?
Accessibility.
Disability. It doesn't include anything that schools need to do for accessibility of people with disabilities in the school system across the country.
I think this is a major opportunity, Lawrence, and maybe
I
we
think
can
so.
discuss more about that in the
Well,
near
while
future.
you were talking, I went online and I went to WhatsApp and I asked the school, and he basically says, no, I don't think there are any disabled students. And we're talking about nearly 200 schools.
Wow.
So I think did you know that companies and colleges and schools all have to go through an annual quality assurance process? So schools and colleges all across the Philippines, they have to do a quality assurance self-assessment and submit it to the government or the ministry every year. And occasionally the ministry will bring in an outside auditor or a company, or like a ministry from Australia, for example, would come to the Philippines, to Manila, and they'd go into the schools and they'd look to see that what was written on the self-assessment report was happening in the schools. And if it's not, they can fail you. And if you don't make efforts over 3 months to improve that, they can fail you again. You might get another 3 months. But I've seen universities closed, just shut down. They take away their operating license and they can't take any new students on because they haven't tried to improve their processes. Inclusivity of people with disabilities should be in those documents.
So I totally agree with you, Lawrence. And
Absolutely.
I think in addition to what you said, it could be a great opportunity to introduce that to these schools, because this is a big number. And imagine if we get 10% of these schools in different locations to become more accessible, and students with disabilities can be onboarded. this could be a great success. I'm not talking about 100%, 5%, 10%. This is enough at this stage. And I'm happy to assist you in that as well on a personal level.
Saudi? What about Saudi schools? What about Saudi elementary schools? Public,
well,
I'm talking about public schools, government.
Yeah,
schools.
we do have inclusion program that started long time ago. So basically every school, I don't think they do have quotas for children with disabilities, but every school is should accept any applicant who has a disability. And I think the newer schools that were built in the last 10 or 15 years are accessible. They do have the accessibility solutions. It's now, I would say the ball now is in these schools' court, whether they are enthusiastic about having children with disabilities or not. But for a country like Pakistan, maybe it's the infrastructure that is not supporting the inclusivity. You know, in some Asian countries or African countries where money is an issue, it can be very challenging even for governments or communities to create that accessibility factor.
Yeah, I think we're doing very well in Europe, even though the finances are being cut. But I mean, even I was surprised at the level of disability and the number of children who are picked up every day and taken to school. Even when we had schools going back at the beginning, and the special needs schools were taking only 1 or 2 students a day in order to keep bubbles separated, because of course, people with severe disabilities, their immune systems are often weaker. So we were picking up 1 child a day, and I was driving 200 miles to take that child from home to the school, going back at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, taking that child back home again. 1 child, the council were paying for the bus, for me, for the day as a volunteer driver to do over 200 miles just to take 1 kid to school and back a day. Wonderful systems, really, when you look at other countries.
I think in
go on.
Yeah, sorry. I think in Europe it's more advanced because, for example, if you look at the number of hired people with disabilities in Europe, it's between it can reach up to 80% in some countries. In the UK, I know 50% of people with disabilities have jobs, whereas in the States it's only I believe 18%. So in Europe, it's very advanced comparing even with the States, because in the States it's becoming more political. It's more about political power, not actually the benefit of people with disabilities. But that's another story.
We had this conversation a couple of weeks ago when I realized that companies in England were not recycling very efficiently. So, for example, you go and buy your washing powder, it's still in big plastic cartons that we have to throw away into the recycling. But those plastic cartons, those plastic bottles are very strong and very well made. There's no reason they couldn't be used 20 times.
Yes.
The companies, the manufacturers, the people who packet them are not given an incentive by the government to go back and collect them. When I was a boy, we used to take the bottles back to the shop. We used to take the egg cartons back to the shop. We used to use paper bags. There weren't the plastics around, and the bottles were reused. And I thought, as a quality assurance assessor, why don't we put that in to the quality assurance assessments for recycling and just keep downgrading companies and institutions that were not recycling? And you downgrade them enough, the government will take away their license. That gives them an incentive to start recycling. Who the heck's that? Hi.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that you could do that in schools, elementary schools, to make them more accessible.
Yes.
To make them more accessible. Over a period of 2 or 3 years, they would begin to take more students because there was an incentive for them not to lose their license.
Yes. I think sorry, we don't mean to hijack the conversation here, but it is very interesting to talk about disability and how to make the public space more accessible. In these early stages, like for example, in Aramco, we are working on making accessibility part of the, I would say, the what they call it. It's an audit item. So if you don't do it, you lose some points, or you lose something, or you are downgraded. It's the same thing Lawrence was talking about, and this can be done anywhere. So if we're in a public space and we want to introduce accessibility, for example, sometimes what the first thing you can do is to make it an obligation. Then when everybody, because sometimes incentives don't work, or free support don't work, it doesn't work. What you can do is introduce that as something that people are accountable for, and there will be consequences if you do not oblige, if you do not provide that solution, and eventually organizations and communities will adhere to that.
Okay, thank you. I will ask the last question. Okay. So, Wael, when I look at your life, the way you have shared it tonight, there seems to be something that plays with your life that not so many persons with disabilities have, and that is luck. I don't know if you agree with me.
Maybe.
That's how I see it. So I'd like to know how much of luck and how much of personal determination plays in your success right now.
Well, I wouldn't say I am 100% successful, but I am content with the way I live my life right now. I think being content is more than being successful, because I think, and this is a totally different conversation I can have later on, but yes, I believe I am lucky somehow, but I think the hard work I have put in my life, the support I got from my parents, made me the person who I am right now. I was joking with Lawrence some time ago about a car I bought some time ago. I don't like to really talk about my personal possessions, but I spent so much time in my life without a car. And then when I bought my first car, when I joined Aramco 8 years ago, it was just a typical car. Then I decided to have like a major upgrade, and Lawrence was laughing at me about it because he thought that I'm gonna crash with it the first day. So I said maybe it is time to treat myself very well. And again, I don't mean to brag about this, but I think hard work would definitely pay. There is a factor of luck, but I wouldn't say it's 100% or even 20%. I would say it's like 1 or 2%. But I think it's hard work. The work I put on my self-development, or the work I put on waking up in the morning and going to work and doing the best I can to support the company to be more inclusive, or even the way I practice my life when it comes to reading what I like to read, or doing the things I like to do, and taking care of my own health as well. All of this contributes to the, I would say, the success I made. Although success is still a very fluid word, but I am very content. Every morning I wake up and prepare myself and drive my car and go to work. I am very happy with my car. I'm very happy with having great colleagues, and very happy with the work I do for people with disabilities. I share that with Lawrence a lot. Although we are 7 hours distance, I would say, between each other, but I'm very grateful for the great times we had together during work or even at his house having parties and stuff. Very moderate parties, I would say, because we are responsible people. But having the ability to meet you, everyone, and be able to share is something that I'm very grateful, and makes me very happy. I feel like time flight already. It's almost 2 hours talking, but it feels like 50 minutes or so. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for everyone, for Lawrence, for Ron, for Nancy, Nelda, Gloria, Nikki, everyone. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity you gave me, and I'm sure we will stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
thank,
very much.
thank you so
Yes,
much in behalf of
Thank
Center for
you.
Persons
Thank
with
you.
Disability
thank,
Advocates Incorporated.
thank,
Thank you so much, Wael. Thank you,
Thank you,
Lawrence,
Wael.
Dr. Lawrence, for making this
Thank you,
possible.
Dr.
you're
Lawrence.
welcome.
Yes, thank you, Nikki, Nancy, Nelda, Gloria, and all the rest who are listening to us right now. And to those who
Yes,
will
we
still
forgot the people
listen,
who were listening. Yeah, thank you
okay.
very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a nice
Yeah, thank you.
evening.
Bye. Have a
You
nice
too.
Bye.
evening.
Bye.
Nice
Bye.
See you.
evening.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Wael. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Lawrence.
Thank
Bye.
you.